sunshine meeting, and we wanted to give everyone an opportunity in case they had questions about those two departments. So if you signed up for a particular item, fantastic. But if you signed up for the discussion item, just understand that it really is exclusively about enterprise, is what we're discussing. So I have someone that signed up for budget. I don't know what that means. So just ensure that you have your comments about the enterprise funds that we're going to be discussing, should you have something to say about the enterprise funds. And with that, Madam Clerk, if we could please call the roll.
Commissioner Gonzalez. Commissioner Milian Orbis.
Here.
Commissioner Steinberg. Vice Chairwoman Cohen-Higgins. Chairwoman Regalado.
Present.
4 members present, you have a quorum.
Thank you. And with that, we'll officially start our Appropriations Committee meeting. If we could, yes. Yes. If we could please have a moment of silence, and then Commissioner Steinberg will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Before we begin, given that we're going to be covering a lot of different issues, as always with this committee, it is an open invitation to all of our commissioners that are in the building. Come on down. You don't have to be a member of the committee to participate. With that, Mr. Attorney, let's get started.
Madam Chair, a few housekeeping. The matters before this committee are those listed in the final printed agenda and the changes sheet, which includes the additions of items 1F1, 3N, and 3O. At this time, reasonable opportunity can be extended on non-public hearing items.
Wonderful. The majority of the cards that I have are for 1F1. So that's the special presentations. Is there anyone here to speak on any of the other items? We're opening public hearing. All right, seeing no one come up. Anyone? All right, we're going to close public hearing. Mr. Attorney?
Madam Chair, you can set the agenda.
Yep. So can I have a motion to set the agenda? Thank you. Moved by Gonzalez. Can I have a second? Second by Steinberg. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? All right, having the agenda set. Now we'll go to the poll list. Are there any requests for deferrals or changes, Mr. Attorney?
None.
None. All right, colleagues. Does anyone have any requests? Okay. I guess we'll move it then. All right. I have a few questions on 3C, so I'll just pull it for Jimmy to speak on it just so that we can explain it to the board. Other than that,
Madam Chair, this would be to move all the non-public hearing items, so
yes.
2A and then 3A through 3O with the exception of 3C.
Yes. Moved by Gonzalez. Can I have a second? Second by Orbis. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? All right. Mr. Attorney?
Would you like to handle item 3C or the public hearing item?
Yeah, let's just take 3C. Jimmy, I just wanted you to explain it, just because obviously transit has several expenditures, and I know this one particularly impacts the service, so I just want to take an opportunity for you to explain it. Or I don't know if you want Stacy to do it. Your call.
Good morning, Beth Goldsmith, Chief Strategy Officer for the Department of Transportation and Public Works. Just to do a quick review, this contract supports our CAD AVL system, which comes from Clever. That is, in essence, sort of the brainchild of our transit operations. So these are the devices and software systems that manage our dispatch operations, the location of all of our vehicles, allows us for tracking, assists in scheduling, connects to our communication network. So it's a critical part of our technology infrastructure. As with the rest of our portfolio, we are looking at modernizations. This is a system that we have slated for replacement in the future, but we do understand that that's complex given the nature of the system and the interoperability with our transit operations. So we expect that to be a lengthier process, and the implementation of a replacement system will take multiple years. And so that's why we're bringing this before you today. Understanding that it will be in place for a 5-year period of time, we want to make sure that we are as current as we can be to gain any efficiencies that exist in this system. And so that's why included within this is an upgrade, and then additional modules to support the incoming fleet of electric vehicles.
Thank you. So I have a little experience with it because of Metro Rail and obviously Mover. So when you talk about the 5-year implementation, when are you planning on putting out? Are you going to put out an RFP? What's the plan for the change in this? Should there be a change or modernization of it?
So yes, the expectation is to put out an RFP. We are taking a little bit of an alternative approach with this one. Because we've had this system in place since 2013, we want to look at doing a proof of concept phase as part of the RFP process to sort of assist us in making sure that any technology that we select will be successful in our environment. And so we do expect a little bit longer than normal procurement process. And then again, a multi-year implementation effort as we replace the system.
And I asked that because there's no conflict with this contract and doing a pilot. So embedded in that is that there will be a pilot, that we are going to be testing new technology to make sure that whatever the selection is works for the system.
That is absolutely the expectation, yes, Commissioner.
Okay. Are you expecting this company to bid for that RFP?
I cannot speak to what their future business course would be, but they are certainly a player in the industry. And so we are obviously conducting extensive industry outreach and are hoping to get a healthy competition in the industry. So, I mean, I, again, can't speak for them, but I would expect they would have interest in the future contract.
Okay. If you should, I understand that it's an extensive RFP and it's a big amount. If you can get it done faster, is there a plan to do it faster? Or do you think it's going to take the whole 5 years? Are we going to be hearing about an extra year? Right.
The RFP process itself will certainly not be the entire 5 years. That also encompasses an implementation plan for the replacement of the system. We're going to work as much as we can to expedite. Obviously, we want to modernize our systems and be able to utilize the efficiencies that we'll gain through having a modern system in place. So certainly, we're hoping by having a more structured process, it will alleviate some of the ins and outs of doing a complex RFP by vetting some of those processes up front as part of the proof of concept phase that will help us expedite on the back end and implementation.
Okay. All right. Yes. Commissioner Steinberg?
Thank you. I know that the current contract expires end of November.
Correct.
At what point did you guys start doing the outreach to look prospectively as to what we want to do industry standard wise, or make sure we're timing it to have something as a competitive procurement on the street?
So the outreach efforts have been ongoing probably over the last 2 years, right? To make sure we really understand the industry and we're trying to shape this in a way that will allow us to be competitive. And in parallel to that, right, we understood then there would be a need to extend the existing contract, which prompted us to enter into a negotiation process with our existing provider to make sure that we're putting forth, an extension that represents the best value to us while we go down that pathway. So it has been a lengthy process.
It's very lengthy.
Yeah, this one's going to be a little complex. And I think, Jimmy, it might be a good idea just to keep the board aware of the timing of it. Because, from the presentation, I think what you're going to do is you're going to embed the pilot as part of the selection process. And I think it's a good idea, but that can complicate things given our procurement rules. So I don't know if you want to add something, Jimmy.
Yeah, we'll do extensive briefing. My sense is, as you know, The county as a whole, and particularly DTPW, have sometimes been burned when we double down on new technology.
Agree.
I think we're hopefully learning from that experience and want to kick the tires a little bit more before we then go, all in. And I think that's what this process is about, which is why it's taking a little bit longer. But I think, given how rapidly some of this technology changes, it probably makes sense.
Yeah, listen, I pulled it because I agree. I think that you're choosing the correct path on this one. I don't think this is a situation where you want to have a 2-year RFP and then you have a bid protest and then before you know it, we're up against the wall, right? And then the thing starts and it doesn't work, right? So I think the idea of doing a pilot and embedding it as part of this process is important. My only concern is, how that's going to work in the procurement, right? So with a bid protest or something like that, like I don't want you to get jammed up and then it take longer. So that's my only caveat. And I think you might need the board's help, procedurally on that one, Jimmy. You should probably consider creating some series of rules for this particular one, given its nature. But I really do think it's an intelligent way to tackle lessons learned from other technology buys that we've made. So that's why I wanted to highlight it for the board, because I think it's expensive, all these things are, but I think moving forward, that might be a modality that would be better for us, not just pragmatically, but fiscally.
And I'm sure we'll work with SPD, Namada and her team to help us, make procurement work well in this particular context.
Yeah, there's just a few traps that you might get stuck in. So that's all that I'm trying to forecast. And maybe you can get some waivers for the board to be able to navigate that a little bit better as you kick the tires.
We do contemplate a request to advertise process as outlined within the item. So we expect to be following that, and just the industry feedback has been very positive regarding this particular pathway for replacement.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. All right, can I have a motion? Steinberg, you're the only one.
It's just the two. Do we have quorum?
Yeah, he's here. Okay, so moved. Gonzalez moved.
Okay. I'll second
second.
it for purposes of committee to get it to the full board. I still think that we have an opportunity here to really fine tune and make sure that the long term has better cost savings with the new technologies that are available in, for, especially as we integrate location tracking and so forth. So, yeah.
That's why I said about the 5 years. So I think at some point you might want to talk to Namida and see if we can, shrink it, because I think there's a few things that can be done to help.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may,
Of course.
I agree. I'd love to meet with you guys one-on-one. To Commissioner Steinberg's point, I just want to understand it fully.
Absolutely.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, motion passes. Mr. Attorney.
Madam Chair, your next item is the public hearing item, 1G1, an ordinance relating to security at Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department, amending sections 32-171 and 32-172 of the Code of Miami-Dade County, Florida, adding definitions, extending time period for identification cards, amending information provided with application, authorizing Security Division to obtain fingerprints for submission to federal and local law enforcement agencies for background checks on employees, contractors, and vendors, requiring access to restricted areas of Miami-Dade Water and Sewer Department, approving the plan of issuance, and providing severability, inclusion, and exclusion from the code, and an effective date. This is a public hearing item.
Thank you. So we'll open public hearing. If anyone wants to speak on this item, public hearing is open. I don't have any cards for this one, so if you didn't fill out a card, come on down. Seeing no one, public hearing is open. 1, 2, 3. Public hearing is closed. All right, colleagues. So I worked with the department on this. I don't know if you want the director to speak a little bit about it, or if you want us, do you guys want to talk about it, or are you good with it? It's pretty straightforward. Yeah, Director, come on down. We'll give you a little overview. Thank you. So we've been really focused on the security aspect of water and sewer for some time, and we kicked around a few ideas, and we landed on this. Director.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, Commissioners. Jay Fink, WASD Director. This is amending the Ordinance, it will create new identification cards. What that means is that in the previous ordinance, there was a requirement to issue brand-new cards every year. This will remove that. In essence, what it will do, it will allow a little bit of revamping, better recognition of technology, and at a minimum, look to save $30,000 a year in costs of redoing all of those ID cards.
Without causing any security issues. So in fact, this new system is going to be more specific as to zones, right? Without having to reissue the cards every single year. Not only did it cost a lot of money, it took up a lot of bandwidth unnecessarily. And it was a practice that was done at Water and Sewer because we kind of like rushed to the security piece. But it's really the only department that has that type of security. So we walked through what would be the best practice to give us better security and then also cost savings and time. We're going to save a lot of time on this one.
Correct. The original ordinance was crafted in 2002, so a lot of technology
A lot
has
has
come and gone
changed.
since then. Yes.
A lot has changed. Does anyone have any questions? All right. Okay. So can I have a motion? Move it. Steinberg moves it. Second by Gonzalez. All those in favor say, well, roll call.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
4.
Milian Orbis, Commissioner Steinberg, Vice Chairwoman Cohen Higgins,
Four.
Chairwoman Regalado.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. All right, Mr. Attorney.
Last item on your agenda, Madam Chair, is the discussion item on enterprise department budgets, 1F1.
Wonderful. We do have some speakers on that. I will take the speakers first, and then we'll take the departments. Like I said at the beginning of the meeting, this is really about the enterprise department, the departments. It's not about the general fund or those departments. So please stay on the topic. My first public speaker for 1F1 is Barbara Melianier. I think that's what that says. Then I have Sumaya Claude, Amy Morales. You should be getting up and walking down if I'm calling your name. Melissa Vetienne, if you want to speak. Nope. You're going to wave? Okay. All right. Okay. Nick Mayor and Tenny and Danny. All right. Well, if you're here and you're waving, just wave, literally. All right. Perfect. Okay. So I called you. You're here. All right. We could talk after if you like. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Are there any other public speakers on this? Going once, going twice? Okay. So we'll close the public hearing on the presentation and we'll start with the presentation. Colleagues, I just want to take an opportunity to go through the enterprise funds. A lot of the things that we've been discussing in the meeting of the whole, we were only able to focus on the departments that receive funds from the general fund. And I didn't want to not have those same conversations about the enterprise funds. Some of the things that I've mentioned to them that we're going to discuss are the same topics that I covered on the meeting of the whole. And that is, and I know that some of them are near and dear to your heart, how many jobs created in the last 5 years, what's happening to those positions, advertising, PR, you know, what has changed since 2020 and what is changing. The fact that they are enterprise funds does not change the accountability that they have to this board. So with that, we'll start with Seaport. Madam Director, come on down.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Heidi Webb, Director of the Seaport Department, and I appreciate this opportunity to discuss our proposed budget for next fiscal year. First, a couple of highlights for the Seaport Department. As you all know, we are a self-funded proprietary department, meaning that we do not take any funds from the general fund. In fact, we rely on the fees that we charge our customers through our long-term cruise cargo agreements and our leases. With that said, we are the #1 cruise port in the world. We had 8.2 million cruise passengers that came through your port of Miami last year. We're number 1 in the state of Florida for cargo, number 11 in the US for cargo, and on our small 520-acre island, with all of this cruise and cargo movement going through, we produce an economic impact of $61 billion, creating over 340,000 jobs for our local community. So with that little preview, let me switch into the budget going forward for next year. So our revenues are strong. Our projected budget shows revenues of $346 million, just based on our long-term contractual contracts. So cruise makes up the majority of that. It makes up about 44.5% of our guaranteed revenues. Cargo represents about 25% of that. The other delta goes to our leases, our permits, our T&Es, our ground transportation revenues that we pick up. We have a very, very strong cash reserve on hand, about $420 million. So when you take our cash reserves on hand with our contractual guarantees of the $346 million, it equates to a total revenue next year projected of $768 million. With that said, I'm proud to tell you that is an estimated 16.8% higher than the revenues that we're generating this current fiscal year. So switching over to expenses. On the expense part of our budget projected for next year, our expenses are projected to be $177 million, comprised basically of a couple of different buckets. So of salaries, of expenses that we give to other county departments, and for contractual services. And I'll get into those 3 buckets because I know that you've been asking questions in your previous meetings on those in a minute. But we have a strong capital program for next fiscal year. It's about $368 million. So that combined with our debt reserves, our operating and debt, our operating expenses equal our revenues going forward and balances us out at $768 million for next fiscal year. So we have a strong, robust capital improvement program. A lot of our projects for next fiscal year are contractually guaranteed that have been to this board for approval, that are revenue generating, including a new cruise terminal G for Royal Caribbean, building out the new berth 10 in the current MSC cruise terminal facility, ERTG cranes in our South Florida container terminal. All, again, will keep on bringing these revenues to the port. The Royal Caribbean campus as well. And then one big project for next year, it'll be an 8-year project actually, is the rehabilitation of our North Bulkhead project, which will not bring us extra revenue, but it's critical infrastructure that ensures that the business will keep on coming to Port of Miami. To address some of the questions that you have been asking in other meetings, our personnel. I want to talk a little bit about our staff. We have 518 full-time positions at the seaport. Approximately 350 of these, so more than half of them, are public-facing, forward to the public, so housekeeping, maintenance, cruise and cargo operations, and safety and security. Very important to our bottom line. Of those 518 positions, 427 of them are filled right now, which we have 91 vacancies as we sit today. A question has been previously asked of how many of these vacancies have been vacant for the last 6 months. The majority of them have been. We have 74 of these 91 vacancies that we have not filled in the last 6 months. Lots of reasons for that. Primarily, back in March, the administration, the mayor, asked us to put a hold on freezing positions that were not critical. So we froze a lot of those positions. We're also very seasonal, based on volatility. Where our busy season is obviously in the wintertime, so we're approaching that now, so we have some flexibility there as well. But I want to point out that these 518 full-time positions is something that we have had budgeted since 2023. So that's nothing new. That's been consistent with our past personnel expenses. Relating to our promotional account, we have a promotional account of $1.4 million. That's actually less than 1% of our overall budget, and the bucket that goes into that is everything from memberships, subscriptions, conferences that we attend, CBOs, and of that such. So it's 0.8% of our overall budget. Other departmental charges.
I'll interrupt you there because I did pull up, I think it's important. I did pull up the numbers from last year, and your publications remain the same, but I will say your subscriptions, you went down from 62,500 to 5,000. So you did make a dramatic cut, and I know that was one of the things that was mentioned. You also reduced membership, the registration fees, the newspaper promotion, the magazine ads. You did take a chunk out of all of these. There were a few that stayed the same, but for the most part, you did reduce by more than 50%, 15%, almost all of them. So that is appreciated. So that part of your budget went from 1.6 to 1.4.
Correct.
Correct. And I appreciate you acknowledging that. A lot of that has to do with the new times, right? Like, a lot of people don't go to print anymore, so our advertising has gone down. We do a lot of digital marketing and digital
You've
PR.
pivoted.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Any other questions so far? If not, I'll pivot to the departmental charges.
Departmental.
Okay, so departmental charges, we give back to the county and the sheriff's office about $42 million annually for services that are rendered at the Seaport Department. Obviously, our largest chunk is safety and security. Our sheriff's budget for this upcoming season is $19.8 million. Our fire rescue is about 8.5. ITD about 5.8. We actually did have a slight reduction in our ITD budget. And then it goes on. We do pay pros for landscaping at the port. We have budgeted about $1.5 million for that next year. And of course, we give, smaller amounts to bond administration. We give it to DPW for oversight of our taxis and our T&Es on the seaport. We give to solid waste for mosquitoes. So that all falls into the bucket that we give back to other county departments.
Right, and just to explain to the folks who are listening at home, obviously the enterprise departments cannot give directly to the general fund, but you do use the services.
Correct.
And this is a detail of those services and the services that you provide. Clearly, some of these departments are general fund departments, right? So by using pros to do your landscaping, instead of hiring a contractor, you're able to give some funding to pros, right? So just to explain that to the folks at home.
That's spot on, thank you. So just in closing, I want to reiterate to you that we do have a fiscally responsible budget going forward. Revenues are expected to be up 16.8% last year, while we have managed to cut to date our expenses by 5%, showing in our budget that you have in front of you. And again, we do continue, the department, the administration, we do continue to look at our budget expense lines every single day and cut where we can. And you have that commitment from us.
Thank you. Heidi, I did want to talk to you about the fire boats. Because, and we've talked about it, and I mentioned it at our first hearing. I know that the fire boats were 5.5 million, and they're not used exclusively for the port, but they are designed to put out a fire on a cruise ship, which makes it a little bit different than the average fire boat. So I talked to Fire about it. Here comes the chief. I talked to Fire about it, And what I was talking about was, I think that the port, given that there's specific types of fireboats, should pay a portion of what they cost. I know that you charge them rent to be there, and they actually service that area. So you're not using them exclusively, but if the fire chief could talk a little bit about the amount. I know it went up for fire services from 8.2 last year to 8.4, but I wanted to have a conversation about paying for a portion of the fireboat, because I think that would help us kind of right the ship on some of these other issues that we have with fire. So, Chief, come on down. Hey, Chief.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman. Ray Jadala, Fire Chief, Miami-Dade Fire.
Thank you. So when we talk about the purchase of the fire boats, if you could tell us a little bit about the boats, and where what I have from prior is 5.5 million is what they cost.
The operating cost of a fireboat, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is in the ballpark of 5.5 million, correct?
Okay. So that's the operation of the boat. What did the boat cost, and when do we pay for it?
So, I mean, I don't have the exact figures, but the boats were, purchased probably back in 2018, 2019. We received them in a ballpark of 2020. I think it was in the roughly 1.1 million, but I know that the boats are much more expensive now. And we do have total of 4 marine fire vessel fireboats, 2 55-footers and 2 38-footers. In addition to that, we do have what we call a safe boat, which looks like a Coast Guard small boat, which is a 27-footer.
With the ones that are in the port, my understanding is that there was a design criteria specifically for cruise ships. Now, thankfully, we haven't had to use it, but it was manufactured a little bit differently for that purpose, even though it gets used in the area.
So they weren't necessarily created, specifically for cruise ships. So one of the vessels that we purchased, we made modifications to have what is called Purple K. It's a type of retardant that helps extinguish fires, especially the LNG type concept. But the actual firefighting of cruise ships and barges and et cetera, unless the fire becomes extravagant and basically all units are on the outside, is done on the interior of the ship and barges.
Okay. In terms of the life of this boat, you said that you got them in 2020. What is your life expectancy for these? Like, what's the maintenance on these things?
The maintenance is always ongoing. It's, contingent on the crew members, and then, of course, trying to get the service hours where they're sent to a vendor. But we try to get about 10 to 15 years out of a fire vessel.
Okay. Again, I would like to hear from the board on this. Heidi, you do a great job. I don't want to push this on you. But at the same time, we're trying to figure out how do we pay for some of this equipment and that the ones that are using it are paying for part of it. So I think it's a fair discussion. I know that you pay for fire rescue and you have your fee there, but obviously, Chief, that doesn't include the fireboat. Those are two. Like when you talk about the fire rescue fees that the port pays, that does not include the fireboat.
Correct. What we have is we have an agreement where they service for a fire truck and a rescue truck. And in addition to that, there is an agreement where if they need additional services that we implemented last year, which includes when they have additional ships that are in port, we actually staff what we call carts. Because the traffic gets pretty extensive on the port, depending on the number of ships, we actually have carts strategically located to reduce response time, and they also hire a second rescue, which comes from the actual port funds.
Okay. All right. Would you be open to the port paying for part of the fireboat? What are your sentiments on that? Not putting you on the spot, Ray. It's just a question.
I'll defer to the commission and to the to the director out of respect. Obviously, I wasn't aware that this would come up for me, so I'll defer to the board or to the committee, and of course, to the director, and we could have further discussions about it.
Okay. All right. Just something to consider.
Okay.
All right. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding the port? Yes. Commissioner Higgins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To our port director, I want to take a moment, frankly, to applaud you. In a climate where the budgetary discussions universally are completely negative, I think it's important to put a pin in a moment where the budgetary discussion is entirely positive. So I want to thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you for your continued management of that enterprise fund. It is not often that we hear numbers like $400 million in reserve. That's extraordinary, and I want to applaud you and highlight great work when great work is being done. So thank you, Madam Director.
The Seaport has a great team behind me. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Steinberg?
Yeah, ditto. I was gonna say very similar comments, and I'm so fortunate that we get to actually get an update from you on a regular basis on exactly what is happening at the port, what the forecast looks like, and they're always planning ahead. So I think it's so important for us to, especially when times are good, to plan for when they may not be. So good job.
Thank you.
And I will say, Heidi, and I know we talked about this back in 2020 when it happened, when people hear that reserve number, because of the financial health of the port, when Port Everglades was charging the cruise ships during the pandemic, you did not. And it was not just a fiscal decision, it created invaluable goodwill that we are still reaping the benefits for. And I don't think we would have been able to make that decision without those reserves. So a lesson learned, also for those that weren't here in 2020, one of the other things that happened in 2020 that you did such a wonderful job with Juan was expediting the capital project. So since there were no people on the ships, right, we just got to working on the capital plan. And again, you were able to do that because you had the funds. And it made a world of difference because when the world opened up again, you had several new berths that really have changed the face of the port. So I agree on the stewardship, but I also think it's important to note that in a difficult time, the port was very, very innovative and really did excellent work in terms of taking lemons and making lemonade. And I think now we're seeing the fiscal benefit of that, but for those decisions in 2020, 2021, and even 2022, because it dragged there for a while. I don't think we would have the good news that we have now. So I also want to thank you for your leadership, and I know you have an amazing team and for their dedication.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Next up, then, Ralph, you ready?
Okay, good morning, Madam Chairwoman. Good morning, committee. Ralph Gutierrez, Director, Miami-Dade Aviation Department. So what I'd like to do is start with a quick overview of our current status of where we are as an airport and then dive into the budget, if that is okay with everybody. So currently, as most of you know, we've had our third straight year of record-breaking passenger volume, which concluded with 56 million passengers last year. That makes us the second busiest airport in the United States for international passengers, 10th busiest airport in the US for total passengers. When you take those same stats and translate them to internationally, we're the 27th busiest airport in the entire world for total passengers and 34th busiest airport in the entire world for international. So that gives you an idea on the passenger side how busy we are. When it comes to number of flights, we're averaging about 1,100 flights a day during our regular peak time. During super peak, which is the holidays, we bumped up to a little bit over 1,300 flights a day. What that translates to is we are the number 9 airport in the United States for total aircraft operations, number of aircraft movements, and the number 13 airport in the world for total operations. So technically, we are one of the busiest airports, both passenger, cargo, and total flights. In the cargo realm, which I know is near and dear to your heart,
Yes.
Madam Chairwoman, we are the number 1 airport in the U.S. for international freight, number 3 airport in the U.S. for total freight, and number 3 airport in the U.S. for total cargo, which is freight and mail. Those same rankings translated internationally, we're the number 5 airport in the entire world. We bumped up a spot in international freight, 6 in total freight and 6 in total cargo. So when you take all those numbers into account, we are technically one of the busiest both passenger and cargo airports in the entire world. What does that translate to in economic impact? We recently had our economic impact numbers updated by our consultant, and they are $181.4 billion of annual business impact, direct, indirect, related, and induced in the entire region. And also, that translates to 843,000 jobs. So that makes us, I believe, the state of Florida's number 1 economic engine for the entire state. So that gives you an overview of where we are as an airport. Long-term projections, we're looking at 77 million passengers by the year 2040 and about 5 million tons of cargo. We just had 3.1 million tons, to put that in perspective, this year. So the growth is there. It's exponential growth. We've seen it over the last 3 years. And the reason that we have such an ambitious capital improvement plan, which I will cover briefly, is why we need to have, why we have to have that plan in place to accommodate that growth we see over the next 10 or 15 years. So that's where that puts us at on the performance side. Now, budget-wise, we are what's considered in the industry a residual airport. What does that mean? That we basically get about 35% of our revenue is generated at the airport. As Heidi mentioned, at the seaport, we also do not get any money from the county's general fund or any property taxes. We self-generate our own revenue. So the residual airport model in the industry works like this. We get about 35% of our revenue is generated by what we charge at the airport, rents that we charge our tenants, fees that we charge people that park at the airport, et cetera. That is what we call non-aeronautical revenue. So that's about 35% of what we generate. The remaining 65%, what's quote unquote the residual, that is generated, we collect that from the airlines as their landing fees, passenger facility charges, et cetera. So that is how we're able to balance our budget, by the revenues we get in and then the expenses that we project. So this year, our operational budget is $1.274 billion operational, and that is broken down as follows. We have about $774 million of that is specifically for operational expenses. That's work, boots on the ground, things that we're doing. Then we have about $368 million that we are required by our bond agreement with our trust holders to transfer into accounts to fund reserve maintenance projects, our improvement fund, and also any improvement fund, and any debt service we have to pay off. And then we also are required, as far as reserves, we're required by our bondholders to maintain a 17% reserve, which totals about $131 million, $131.7 million total. So that's what makes up our $1.274 billion operating budget. And then we also have a $699 million for this year capital budget, which includes more than 200 projects broken up into 24 sub-programs in the budget book that we're working on. The overall budget for the capital plan is $9 billion. That's what we're currently working on. But as submitted right now in this year's current budget, we have to, in order to be transparent, we have included additional projects that our team has identified that we feel we need to make sure that we maintain the passenger experience for our passengers and accommodate the growth for. So what's in the budget book right now is $12 billion over the next 15 years for our capital program. So that's an overview on our total budget. I know that the discussion has come up during Committee of the Whole and also during the budget hearing last week about personnel growth over the last 5 years since 2020.
Right, and I wanted to highlight that because one of the confusions that folks have when they look at the overall budget is even though we have eliminated positions and closed vacancies and we've had a freeze, they see a growth in the number of positions, and your department is one of those. So if you could talk to us about. And we know about the lightning teams and stuff, but let's talk numbers about what's happened at the airport, specifically when it comes to maintenance and customer service.
Sure. So over the last 5 years, we've added approximately 330 full-time equivalent positions to our overall number of employees. Currently, including the 75 employees that we are requesting in this year's budget, that puts us at about 1,762 employees that we currently have. Out of those, I know there's been some questions regarding vacancies. So currently, we are carrying 166 vacancies, plus the 75 that we're including that we were requesting in this year's budget. That's about 241. I will tell you that out of all the growth we've seen over the last 5 years, and the 166 that we have currently vacant and the 75 we're requesting, the bulk of those positions, or the majority, are in the operational and maintenance fields, as you mentioned. So, for example, last year we hired 153, or we were almost 153 we had in our budget. We hired about 135. Those were mainly for the lightning teams, which are maintenance and operations, and that is specifically to accommodate the level of growth that we're seeing, that we continue to see. As an example, as you and I discussed, in the maintenance area specifically, many years ago, when our terminal was only about 5 million square feet, we had about 800 maintenance employees, full-time equivalents that were in maintenance. Currently, we have just under 500, when our terminal is now 10 million square feet, when you count the 1.5 million square feet of aprons. So that, those two numbers do not jive. So what we're doing is, little by little, we're trying to build back up to the staffing levels that we need to have to maintain not only the operation, but to keep our facilities maintained and continue to provide a good customer experience. Now, the good news is, on the vacancies that I mentioned and the ones that we're adding, we've eliminated $8.1 million in overtime.
I was about to say, because when we talk about the vacancies, we always have to mention the impact that they have in overtime. So if you zero out the vacancies, the overtime, grows exponentially. So if you could talk about the correlation that you have between the vacancies, the positions that you filled, and the overtime.
Sure. So
Historic to point.
as far as the current existing vacancies and the ones that we filled last year and the ones that we're asking for this year, in this year's budget, we will eliminate $8.1 million in overtime as a result of the positions we're adding this year, the 75 we're adding this year. And then I know Commissioner Gonzalez, I don't see him, but there was a mention of also any vacancies that are more than 6 months, aged. Out of those, we're about 63% of them are in active procurement, and another 23% are in downtown in processing. So overwhelmingly, the ones that have been more than 6 months, the recruitments are active. So we're moving on those. And again, because the need is there and the growth is there, so we see that.
The only caveat that I would say in terms of the 6 months and your positions is, and I know that most of the board understands this, you also have background checks and badging.
Correct.
So I think it's not, normally all of our departments have a background check and fingerprints, but background check, fingerprints, and badging is an entire different process. My understanding is that the quickest that you could do the badging is like 3 months. I think last time on a good day, Ralph.
Varies.
And it varies. But that adds to the complications, right? Because you have to go through a series of preliminary steps before that first day. So, I mean, I wouldn't use the 6-month mark with airport. I would say probably a year. And I think I looked at the vacancies that you have, and some of them are very technical. So I think when we talk about vacancies, not all vacancies are created equal. If you have something that has a high level of technicality, and we have this issue at water and sewer also, you can't fill a highly technical position in 6 months. That's just not something that's viable.
If I can offer an example.
Yes, by all means.
You just said, so, for example, a triple E tech, a technician that works on a passenger loading bridge, that is a very niche function that requires a certain amount of experience to work on a component of our operation that, you know, it's safety related. I mean, passengers get off and get on aircraft using loading bridges. So to recruit people like that, they have to have a lot of experience in electrical work, et cetera. And again, that's what makes it challenging. So you add that complexity and that type of niche specialty to the idea, you know, of badging and all, that's what makes it take longer. But even with that, I think we've done a pretty good job moving along our vacancies and getting them active. So I anticipate that over the next year or two, we'll have most of those eliminated. And the good news is that it does, the reduction in overtime is a big win as far as balancing everything out. So that's on that end. I also remember there was mention of strategic marketing, communications, that type of thing, and I think we spoke about that as well. Out of the 1.274 billion, the 774, which is actually operating, boots on the ground, nothing that's being transferred. Our strategic marketing budget, we don't spend any money on, you know, advertising, things of that nature. So it's $4 million. It's about 0.52% of the overall. So it's a negligible amount of our overall budget, but we get a lot of mileage out of it because we use a lot of earned media, digital media, et cetera, to get the word out. So we don't do anything as far as, you know, printing billboards, things of that nature. So it's a small amount, and we do get a lot of mileage out of it. We've been very successful over the last couple of years getting the narrative turned around and getting the word out as to all the improvements that are going on and the modernization, et cetera.
And the bulk of that is really staff that's responding to requests, you know, whether they be on social media or whether they be from journalists. So the bulk of that are humans.
Correct. For example, we have an air service development division, and their specific job, kind of like separate, they go out and drum up business and get airlines to come and fly with us. We have a consultant that works for them, but it's a 5-year contract for $930,000. It's $186,000 a year, and what they do is they gather data, they do studies, they make the case for an airline to come to fly with us, and they have the subject matter expertise along with our staff to do that. So that's a consultant contract that we have, but it's minimal for the amount of mileage that we get out of it and the number of airlines we have. We're close to 100 airlines right now, which is the most number of airlines of any airport in the country. So we've been pretty successful with that. So we have a balanced budget. It's lean. All of our positions that are currently vacant are mainly in the operations and maintenance division, as you know, which we need. So we've cut the fat out, and that's essentially where
You get points for using lean. You get points for using lean. Thank you, Ralph. All right. Anybody have any questions? You're good? All right. We're entering into snack time. Thank you, Ralph. That was very useful. We really appreciate it. Up next, we have public housing. Nathan, come on down. So Nathan, do you have a presentation? What do you want to do?
Yeah, I have one slide.
Just one slide. Okay. There we go. One slide. Your one slide is up. And we'll say that we haven't had a meeting of GET, but we were looking forward to your presentation in GET. So at some point, we'll do that.
Yeah, so I guess this is the mini GET.
The mini version, right.
So I want to go through, how our department, housing and community development, is put together. And I think it's quite unique for county government because it's really 3 or 4 pillars or smaller departments where funding comes in, and we have to balance budgets on each of these pillars, and we're responsible for personnel costs and operations based on these pillars where there's very little room for transitioning dollars from one pillar to the other pillar. So that's why I kind of want to go through the pillars first.
Agree.
So first pillar, public housing. This is our public housing stock. We have currently 6,000 public housing units, which houses approximately 10,000 residents. That's an $80 million operation between certain capital improvements and operations. Those dollars are exclusively federal. There's I'd say maybe 0.5% that's coming in from other sources, but it's generally a federal program. Second pillar, which is our Section 8 Housing Choice Vouchers. We have approximately 22,000 vouchers. Of those, 19,000 are the tenant-based or the housing choice vouchers that we know of that go to the tenant for those rental assistance. The total program is approximately $430 million. Again, those are federal funds. Third pillar, community development. This is a mixture of dollars for redevelopment and development of private sector housing for homeownership and for multifamily. That's the use of our surtax dollars, which is a unique funding source for Miami-Dade County. In that regard, over the last 5 years, we've given out approximately $250 million in surtax loans for construction projects. This also funds down payment assistance, second soft mortgage, our condo assessment program, which we've been extremely successful. Additionally, with regards to community development, that includes our CDBG program, Home, SHIP, and these are dollars also for certain infrastructure improvements, parks projects, economic development, public service projects in certain geographic areas that are, again, regulated by HUD. So it's the application and it's the management of those dollars as well. And finally, the fourth pillar, which is relatively new, is our development pillar, which is the action of redeveloping our public housing stock, other vacant properties. We've also included the redevelopment of single-family and duplex lots. Again, those are federal dollars that work into it. Of course, the private sector is making massive investments into these developments. We also have, again, surtax dollars, which on this chart we call them HCD local. We do have a very small portion of
General fund.
We have $3 million in general fund. That primarily funds
The
our
ALF.
one assisted living facility,
Yes.
as well as a little bit on the infill housing program, which was created 10, 15 years ago by the board. And at that time, the board put general funds towards that program. But again, between infill housing and the assisted living facility, we have the $3 million. We are looking at significant restructuring. Again, this is more for during this fiscal year. With regards to public housing, which is an $80 million program. The way that we operate public housing is very militarized. It's geographic based. We have our groups of public housing facilities, north, south, central. We break them down into smaller components for management. And as we redevelop these public housing sites, we can start modifying the nature of our positions and perhaps eliminating positions. So one of our big actions for this year is a full analysis of our public housing processes to look for efficiencies and cost savings, as well as the Section 8 program, where we do have a solicitation that has been completed because we do work with a vendor. We want to bring in, and we are going to bring in what we call project-based vouchers, which is the vouchers that go to developments, which run with the actual unit, to bring that program in-house, which will reduce significantly our costs to our contractor. We believe that will realize some significant savings. So those two areas, which are combined approximately over 500, almost $600 million, again, with an overall operating budget of $640 million, we are looking for significant efficiencies.
So Nathan, just a little historical point that I think would be important for the board. If you were to go in a time machine about, I think Rod really got hot, I want to say 2016, when we started talking about the pork and beans, right? Because that's when the federal government changed those rules. Prior to RAD, Miami-Dade Public Housing owned the buildings outright. And the issue was never really having the maintenance for it because the federal government really didn't provide maintenance for these buildings, right? So you had the building, right? You build the building, but the issue was the state of those buildings and how old those buildings were in terms of the portfolio and the maintenance of them. When RAD is brought at the federal level, it is a response to that maintenance issue, which allows you to partner with developers to redevelop those units. And instead of the management and the maintenance of those properties being done by public housing, it's done by the developer and the management company that is embedded in the RAD. Easy way to complete it, kind of, yeah?
Explained it.
Yeah. Okay. So that took a bunch. Every time we redevelop one of these buildings under RAD, they come off our portfolio in the sense that we are no longer fiscally responsible for them. And we get a lot of calls because obviously the federal government also embedded in RAD the up to 7% increase, right? And we'll get into mixed use and all that kind of stuff on how we try to insulate people from those increases in order to pay for maintenance another day. But to your point about the vouchers still run on a relatively antiquated system. They have not had that transition over, right? Where there is another party, they're right now, it's a very kind of, my understanding of the voucher program is not much has changed since 1980, right? I mean, it's still the same voucher program. But at the federal level, they have been talking about changes. And now there is an opportunity, as you said, with the program voucher, to take the RAD kind of methodology is the idea, right? So that same idea that somebody would be like in charge of it and managing it, and you wouldn't have to be sending somebody out to inspect every single little unit, right? Every single time that there's like a turnover, and responding to every complaint. Right now, the vouchers are a very complex like time commitment in terms of maintaining the standards, right? And responding to the issues that people have in those private units, because they're private. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's really, it's more of, we have our, I'll call them the housing choice voucher, which is your again, that is a voucher that runs with the individual. And then, as you say, the project-based voucher, what really the push is, it's the creation of new project-based vouchers with the redevelopment of the public housing. So for each public housing unit, we receive a certain amount for maintenance and for capital. We eliminate that public housing units. We build a brand new unit, or a developer builds, and we take that, or it philosophically, HUD will take that subsidy, convert it to what we call the, Section 18, a RAD, project-based voucher, and then that's given to the developer. Yes, that is the push at the national level.
To kind of embed the voucher in the RAD, to kind of take the RAD concept and embed it in the voucher.
So
okay.
It's extremely valuable, and it really incentivizes developers to assist housing agencies in the redevelopment of these public housing.
Right. And it also has been a kind of decoupling of responsibility on the federal side for these projects, right? So RAD does create this other layer, of investment so that the federal government isn't constantly getting complaints as it did 10 years ago in terms of maintenance money and upkeep, for these buildings, because there's a developer, there's a management company, right? And there is, there's a hierarchy there of investment. In terms of the voucher, I wanted to ask you about the issue with the annual funding that we receive for that. Because you and I have spoken about this for many years on many occasions. And the issue there is the federal government issues the voucher, but they also project the increase in the rents, right? And sometimes those two decisions do not work together. So if you could tell us a little bit about what's happening there and how do you deal with it every year, not just this year, just every year.
So I like to look at the Section 8 program as a car and filling it up with gas. So we have approximately 19,000, we'll call it again the housing choice, the vouchers that go to the resident. We have 19,000. 5 years ago, we had 14,000. So we've been able to increase because we've been extremely successful in managing the program. And this is, according to HUD's metrics. So HUD does two things. They look at the total number of vouchers, but then they assign a certain value to that, which is your funding. So what's happening this year, what we're seeing with, and this is going across the nation, we have increasing rents, and we've been successful and increased the total number of vouchers. So they're funding with an assumption of, okay, what those rents are going to be, and is called an inflation factor. They have not given us the right inflation factor. So we've got the number of vouchers. We don't have the gas to put in the car. We don't have the dollars because they fund the dollars. They look at that every single year. So again, nationally, we're looking at approximately $800 million shortfall, which, again, embedded in HUD are processes for the federal government to work with the local agencies to fund these shortfalls.
And that shortfall happens every year. And in fact, I think last year or the year before, the money that we had was swept in order to pay for that shortfall.
That's correct. And we've been pretty successful to ward off shortfall. And that is correct. Last year, because we did have a surplus, federal government took approximately $11 million to fund other shortfalls in other jurisdictions.
Right. So even if you're lucky enough to have a surplus, that you cannot keep that surplus for the next fiscal year.
Well,
Right.
you can.
If they allow it.
It depends on the national scene, on what's going on with regards to shortfall. Federal government puts approximately $200 million aside for anticipated shortfalls, and then should those shortfalls be greater, there's additional funding. They have to procure additional funding. So
For this year, for the projection of the rent increases, what did the federal government give us versus Broward?
So our inflation factor, and I'll say for Miami-Dade County, the inflation factor was 0. We range from approximately 5-7%, again, over the last 5 years, as high as 15%. Now, even according to HUD's analysis of our rent increases and our program costs, with their numbers, we've had a program cost of 16.5%. So they're looking at our numbers last year with the total number of vouchers. We had 19,000 vouchers, and that cost, again, approximately $400 million. We're a 16% increase, but again, they're funding at the $400 million. So Broward had a 12.9% increase.
That HUD gave them.
That HUD gave.
So we got 0, they got 14.
That's correct.
Okay.
So, we do have shortfall here. Hialeah Housing Agency, Homestead, Miami Beach, they're all in shortfall. And some in greater percentage than ours as well. So we constantly meet with the HUD shortfall team. In fact, we have a meeting later today. We're working with our lobbyists, our federal lobbyists, and doing the work in Washington to ensure that we get the appropriate shortfall. And we also have met several times with the regional director, Cleveland Leggett, with regards to these issues. So typically and customarily, should an agency follow the preventative steps in not exacerbating the shortfall? And again, we started at $77 million. This was in February. The HUD's anticipated shortfall was $77 million. We've brought it down to $45 million. So again, we put, we can get very technical, but we put various measures in which allows us to be more efficient with how we allocate dollars. It is customary, and we've seen this, going back many, many years. Shortfall is covered. So we believe we'll get the same treatment. However, again, we are, diligent in working with HUD because of this larger national problem.
Wonderful.
We will provide additional updates.
And as for the 3 from the general fund, like you said, it's mainly the ALF. I know Keon's been working on that ALF forever. We've talked about it a million times, and that really is a benefits issue, right? So we've all talked about the issue in securing benefits for the folks that are there. Does anyone have any questions for Nathan? All right, Nathan, you're done. Thank you very much, sir. I really appreciate it. Next, we have Lourdes for RER and also helping us out with Durham, I think. Thank you, Lourdes.
Okay. Good afternoon. Lourdes Gomez, RER. I know you're familiar with many of the functions of RER, and we covered them in detail over the recent months as part of my explanation to all of the board pertaining to the fees that were adopted in June. What we have been concentrating on to date is ensuring that the department is fully funded and staffed appropriately to provide the development community, contractors, small businesses, and residents who depend on our public-facing land development and permitting services to continue at the speed that they've become accustomed to. I know there was an interest with respect to vacancies and the period of time that vacancies have been out there, and that we were affected by the pause in hiring that had occurred as part of preparation for this budget year. We have 296 vacancies in our area. About half of them have been open more than 6 months, and again, that was due to the mayor's directive to all county departments to pause in hiring as we prepared for this year's budget. The other half has been vacant for less than 6 months, but we are anticipating moving forward, and many recruitments have already been started to fill those positions, because we do not want to have protracted wait times. We do not want to have failures in terms of our expected review times for plan review and permitting and inspection services that industry is expecting from us. With respect to just in general, the direction and activities that we've been focused on, I've explained many of our initiatives relative to IT and continuing to expand services for transparency of the permit process, as much as we have done over the years in the department to bring our services online. We still do have some plan review and permit services that are not online yet, but they are being programmed into our Gold Key system, which many of you have heard. Many of those reviews that are yet not online pertain to Durham, and that was part of our commitment to the board and to the public and the development community, that as part of our adjustments, we would be ensuring that we enhance the permitting, the expansion of the Gold Key system into the remaining areas of the department, the land development areas and permitting areas that were not yet covered. So that is, yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so interrupt you really quick. As we talk about vacancies, I think it's important in this particular department and then also in Durham. I know that you had to deal with some changes when the board changed its rules regarding work from home. Number one, we had to talk about that. And then number two, I think it's important for the board to understand that those two departments, and in some case, water and sewer, if the plans are delayed, if you have a delay, not only do you get complaints, you do not get to start collecting taxes until they have their CO. So there is a cost associated with a delay for this government. There is a cost associated for the private sector, but there is also a budgetary cost for us, because that clock does not start ticking until you get your CO. And technically it's finished and it's birthed, right? And people can start moving in. So I think when we talk about vacancies in your department and overtime, the digitization is very important, because that saves so much time. And obviously that allows for concurrent review. And we've talked about that a million times, kind of the beauty of concurrent review. And we were able to kickstart that during the pandemic. But at the same time, you did have some challenges because people did like working from home on plans review. So how are you doing there? And what are the time periods of your vacancies? Because similar to some other enterprise departments, you have very specialized vacancies. So I don't think 6 months is a proper marker for one of your vacancies. I know that it could take you up to 2 years to find the candidate that fits the position that you're looking for.
Yes, and there are 3 areas that affect us primarily with that issue. Structural engineers, there are maybe 600-700 in the state of Florida that are actually licensed. So certainly we have, the staff we have today is staff that has been with us for more than 20 years. And so, you know, the benefit, they're close to retirement, so the benefit of staying with the county, despite offers that they do receive from the private sector, where they may work from home, you know, we've been able to retain at least the staff that we do presently have for that reason. I will say I'm concerned for the future on that point, you know, in terms of attracting new staff. It is difficult to compete with the private sector in that regard, where you have, you know, more flexibility. We also have that challenge with respect to hydrogeologists that work in the Durham area and are integral to pollution remediation, closure reviews, brownfield reviews. That staff too. There's a few dozen of those that we have on available to us, and we do compete directly with the private sector there as well. The last big area is of course IT. You know, many of the major software companies, you know, they're all focused on, you know, they can work from wherever, right? They can work around the world, they can work from different places in the nation and have, you know, clients and customers elsewhere. We have lost, I believe it's up to 7 positions at this point of our existing IT staff. ITD works with us in terms of certain positions that do service us, and so I know they are actively recruiting and have made offers, some to consultants, to help us ensure that we continue to maintain the level of service and usher forward the commitment that we made to the board and the public that we were going to advance all of our permitting solutions within the next 2 years.
Okay. All right. Does anyone have any questions for Lourdes on RER? Okay, Lourdes, you're going to wear 2 hats today, just generally on Durham. I know they were not available. I'm not 100% for the separation of Durham and RER, but that's a story for another day. But in terms of their budget, what could you tell us? I looked at just generally their funding and their growth. They've actually been shrinking. There is in terms of funding, but then also in terms of employees.
So the numbers that you're seeing is it's existing staff. I don't think there's a reflection in terms of the Durham staff itself growing. It's more reflecting that
there's been a decrease, right? There's a decrease in both. There's a decrease in the funding for Durham, and there's a decrease in the humans.
Because of the split that is occurring with
Right.
respect to that the permitting functions are being retained within RER. That's why you're
Right.
seeing that. And then I would say the major buckets that are staying with the newly constituted Durham department have to do with water resources, project implementation that they do. They do water quality sampling, monitoring. That is a program that has been for more than 40 years and will be maintained through the staff in that area. They do active restoration projects in the Bay. Eel management and acquisition will continue through that newly constituted Durham department. Also, wellfield protection, a very important activity that works hand in hand with water and sewer. That function is remaining. and much pollution prevention. A lot of our active pollution prevention has to do with the operating permits that are issued to businesses that may pose a risk with respect to their use and activities on site. They may deal with hazardous chemicals, they may have emissions, and so those types of enterprises are subject to local permitting, and that they are subject to inspections and reviews. That is how we prevent, any accidents, so to speak, within for active operating businesses. That is, they monitor those activities. That staff will be remaining at DERM in addition to their enforcement of their code. That those activities will also remain with the DERM department.
Yes, the cutting of the mangroves. So Carla Denise, if you could respond, since the director's not here, Commissioner Orbis at our first hearing mentioned particular advertising costs that are inside DERM. If you could speak to those, because I know that was one of her requests that evening. Thank you, Lourdes.
Thank you. Through the chair, Julie Dick has that information. I also thought it was important to note, and our director did a fantastic job, that there's a lot of movement between departments that will reflect changes in how many positions are there from one year to the next. And so DERM is a great example of that. We also have other areas that are some movement. So these numbers, as we said last time, will continue to be fluid. Julie has some information about the marketing in DERM specifically.
Yes, good afternoon, Julie Dick, Deputy Chief Resilience Officer. I can speak to, I think you're asking about the Biscayne Bay marketing budget and the watershed plan.
Yes, those are the two that she mentioned at the hearing.
Okay, so the watershed plan, let me get my notes on this, give me 1 second. So this is a new contract to continue consulting services with an RFP for the Back Bay study. This is a major federal project that we have significant federal resources coming into the county to harden and improve the resilience of our critical infrastructure across the county, protect our property and assets from flooding and other storm risk events. And this is needed because the Army Corps is very technical. The Army Corps has very detailed engineering information, and we need to be able to translate that into collateral that we can use to be able to explain and understand the programs. And this consultancy is critical to be able to move these projects forward. That's on the Biscayne Bay study. And then there's Biscayne Bay marketing as well. The Biscayne Bay the Biscayne Bay Watershed Management Advisory Board has asked for this work and this marketing.
And who are the commission members of that? There's certain commissioners that are on that board. So if you could.
I apologize. I have not personally been involved, so I'm not the best to name offhand those.
Madam Chair, I have a question on that.
Yeah. Steinberg's on it. Steinberg's on it.
Madam Chair, can I have?
Yes, of course.
Did you say the advisory board or the task force? Is director, or I'm sorry, I'm talking over here. Natalie, yes.
There's the Biscayne Bay Watershed Advisory Board, and then we have the Boater Safety Task Force.
Okay, so the advisory board is the one made up of the commissioners.
Both are sanctioned by the commission.
Okay, and they asked you to provide funding for this?
There's actually a resolution number connected to this. And
I'm going to give some clarification.
By all means, and listen, when we talk about this, one of the things that when we get to water and sewer, I requested cutting some advertising there, and that required us to make some changes because the Board of County Commissioners had told them to do that advertising. So that is a very normal thing. We just have to undo it, right? So, but Commissioner Steinberg.
Correct. That was a directive from this board, from the Board of County Commissioners. The updates come in front of the Watershed Management Advisory Committee. The back bay study is actually something that's very impactful. It's a major undertaking. It's with the Army Corps of Engineers. They're looking at different, actually, if you recall, a few years ago, the Army Corps of Engineers was going to,
Build a giant wall.
correct.
Gray infrastructure, we were all against it. We moved for green.
Okay, so, well, that summarizes it. So essentially, this is the next step so that we're working with the Army Corps. But yes, so I don't know, we don't need to go down the rabbit hole right now and all that.
But what's the advertising budget?
Yeah, I don't know.
That was
what-
her question.
I don't know what the I didn't know that that would be included in an advertising budget because that's a study. That's not being necessarily a marketing.
And Madam Chair, I would add,
It's distinct.
how do you know how much it's going to cost? Was that a guesstimate? Like,
No, I can give you the specific numbers. So the watershed plan is a $300,000 budget. The Biscayne Bay marketing is $100,000. And then the back bay study is $500,000 in that work.
All right, so I just wanted to make sure that we answered her questions. And
well,
again,
there was also the 250,000 for the extreme heat marketing.
Yes.
also in that department.
Let me get to that part of my notes, if you bear with me, please. So the heat season public messaging campaign was created by CCED and reaches about 3 million people each year through multiple channels targeting heat safety messaging, including reminders on basic life-saving preventative measures, connects residents with low and no-cost ways to make cooling homes more affordable. This also becomes a life safety issue. We have an excess of $600 heat-related deaths during the heat-related emergency room visits during the heat season. And it also activates 64 designated cooling sites. So this marketing is critical to be able to connect residents who need a place to go to cool off to these cooling sites and help them identify where they can go and have some reprise from the heat. And
May I ask a question?
By all means, the floor is yours.
You said it provides life-saving methods. Can you break that down? How are we saving lives through this advertisement?
We actually have the lowest emergency room heat-related visits in the state, and that has been a change after this advertising.
How do you
this
measure?
marketing campaign.
How do you measure the way that we're preventing people from going to the emergency room?
The state collects this data.
But through the marketing, how do we measure what the impact of the marketing is having on our community?
We know how many, we've reached 3 million people, and we know that the heat-related emergency room visits have been reduced in connection with some of this work. And we also know that people go to the cooling sites, and that those cooling sites are used, and that residents are able to prevent having to go to the emergency room and to...
What are the
because
cooling sites?
They know about these cooling sites.
What are the cooling sites?
Stephen P. Clark Center is one of them. Some of our libraries are cooling sites, but they're places where there's air conditioning and hydration available, where people who may be unhoused, may not have access to there are residents who don't have AC in their homes. And
No, I understand all that. Believe me, I've knocked on doors where residents don't have AC. I understand. But, this could come out of the resiliency budget. It doesn't have to come out of general fund. Also, there's a Department of Emergency Management. They put out extreme heat advisories. It's a little duplicative.
Well, we
Through the
work
chair.
very closely with them, and it's a coordinated effort. And so much of the changes that we're seeing are really about streamlining these duplications and putting people in the departments where there can be that coordination and where we're not having duplicative functions across departments.
Madam Chair, point of clarification.
Yeah, and I just want to say something, and I'm happy.
And I had another.
Yeah, let her finish and we'll go. I think it would be really helpful. Number one of the things that we have found over the years is that departments have a tendency to lump a lot of things into advertising. I disagree with that. They put mail in there, they put studies in there. It would really be helpful to kind of break that up a little for everyone, because when we see an advertising budget right? We think that it's for advertising, and then we drill down and it's not. So I think, you got a specific request from the commissioner during the first budget hearing. I think we really need to break it down into what you're doing and then what the other departments are doing regarding heat to give us a total number on heat, because I know fire also does it. So there's a lot. There's emergency management does it, fire does it, you all are doing it, right? And I get that you're coordinating, but I think it's also important to have a number and know kind of who's paying, who's doing what where, right? So let's finish with Natalie, and then Carla Denise, you want to add something?
Thank you, through the chair and commissioner. I think these are very important questions, and we are compiling information of all the questions that were received last week. But I do think it's important
with all
to
due
know
respect,
the-
I've been asking this since the committee of the whole, which was a month ago.
Yeah.
And I asked it at the budget meeting. I still haven't gotten the answer. Every time I'm told we're going to look at it, and if it's something that can be taken out of the general fund, then we're going to take it out. So are we going to take it out or not? Are we going to piggyback with another department that already does this and not suck this out of the general fund because it's not a critical safety, life or death matter, the marketing, or are we not?
So through the chair, Commissioner, in the mayor's proposed budget that she presented in July, she eliminated the Office of Resilience, and it was in response to this board's recommendation that we consolidate and we streamline the efforts that are being done in respective departments in this regard. So the new department of DERM will be coordinating with those departments to ensure that we are not duplicating, we're not redundant, and we're having as big an impact as we possibly can with the resources that are available. So yes, we have streamlined, we have pulled people together to work as one team, one county, and the elimination of that department. So moving forward, this will be done together. There are different funds that are used for different purposes, and so we need to make sure we're using, to your point, we absolutely agree, the right money for the right purpose.
Right. So the mayor at the committee of the whole was standing somewhere behind me, ran over to the podium and said, we are going to take this out of the budget. It's there on the record. We have a week to go until we approve the final budget, and it's still there to this day. Yes, ma'am.
Point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
I'd like for this committee to request for all the responses that staff is giving to be in writing. Do I need to make a motion for that? Can I make a motion that
There is a
that
record.
all the responses are in writing?
Well, all the numbers that are being referred to here that you're referring to, if you can provide that in writing, that would be extremely helpful. I'm also on the Biscayne Bay Watershed Task Force, which hasn't met yet since I was appointed, but I would appreciate it if I can get a copy of the minutes where the task force asked for this amount of money to be allocated or the marketing effort to be done.
So just
so that I can
clarify-
review that.
Yeah, just to clarify a few points. This is a public meeting, and there are minutes to this meeting. So we're happy to show you the minutes. I mean, we can provide you with the minutes to the meeting. There is a transcription of this meeting that happens anyway. I don't know how quickly the clerk can get you those minutes, but obviously it's a public meeting and it is being recorded and it is being transcribed.
Thank you,
So I
Madam
don't think
Chair.
we need a motion for
Thank you,
that.
Madam Chair. And can each commissioner get a copy of, can each commissioner get a copy of the minutes for this meeting? There's a lot of things that have been said that are really interesting.
All right. Commissioner Milan Orbis, you want to continue? We wanted to give you the opportunity. I think, obviously she needs a breakdown of it. There's a lot in the advertising there. I think you need a breakdown. And I think within that, we also need to provide her with more information as to, once we get to the marketing, what exactly is that? Like, how much has it to do with the locations? Like, what's going on there? Because there was a lot of information was thrown at that one point.
And Madam Chair, I'm sorry to interrupt one more time, but I know that it's being transcribed, but all the questions, I want the answers that you guys are giving. And Chief Denise was great in some of the answers that she gave. I want everything all the questions that were answered today, I want them in writing, please.
It's part
as soon as possible. Not I understand that they're going to be transcribed, but I want an explanation in writing. Just me. I don't know if everybody else wants it, but I want the explanation in writing.
My issue is the bandwidth one, right? So, and I know that the mayor is currently working on the change memo. So, I would, again, happy to give you the transcription. I just don't want to take up staff time. I would tell you probably better off meeting with staff before the change memo goes out.
Respectfully, Madam Chair, there is a lot of staff, and there are some questions that, like, for example, Commissioner Orbis has been asking for months. I'm sure that we can get it in writing. And Carla Denise also pointed out that I had some questions at the last meeting that I was supposed to get yesterday, but I'm sure that I'm going to get by the end of the week, right?
Our team is at work trying to get not just your questions, Commissioner, which were really important, but the entirety of the questions that were asked to ensure, Commissioner Orbis, that things have not been left out. The question that you raised, I just got a little information, I think is easily resolved, and we will try to resolve that. Happy to have a one-on-one meeting with you and talk through it, but we also will make sure that's published so everybody has the benefit of the same knowledge as we go into next week's meeting.
Thank you, Chief. And just to clarify, I understand that there's a transcript, and Madam Chair, you're an attorney, I'm an attorney. I like it in writing, just in case you guys want to make any clarifications or you want to make any further explanation. That's why I want it in writing.
All right. So moving on.
Well, as far as the breakdown, Madam Chair, you mentioned.
Finish. Yes.
I would like a breakdown, and I would like, for example, what was the extreme marketing used for last year? Is it billboards? Is it ads? Is it water bottles? Is it stickers? What was it used for, and what is it being used for? What is it proposed to be used for? What type of marketing? And you don't need to provide that now, but I do want it before the budget.
Thank you.
If I can ask one more question.
One second. I just wanted to, one other thing, Commissioner Orbis, I would recommend, again, if staff, like we said, there was a BCC item that directed staff to have some of that marketing. So if we want to undo that, that recommendation can be made. However, we would have to incorporate that as part of the budget to undo that item, which, by the way, we're doing in water and sewer and we're doing in other departments. So just so that you can talk to the attorneys to ensure that that's also included. Because what we don't want to do is go 2 rounds again at the hearing on how this was something that the board directed the administration to do. So that would be my only suggestion. Commissioner Steinberg was waiting, and then we'll get back to you, Commissioner Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you were just following up on the same thought or something different.
I just wanted to ask a quick question because I think the chair made a great point about the transcripts. And maybe this question is to the administration. Where can the public get copies of all of the transcripts for all of the meetings?
Miami-Dade.gov. You can go in, you can look at not just the transcripts, you can actually watch the video and re-listen to the meetings. You can get all the information you need about our respective meetings on our Miami-Dade.gov.
So the transcripts are available on Miami-Dade.gov?
Next to the meetings, there's like the agenda, and then there's the live transcript, and then there's the minutes later, once the minutes are approved.
Okay, thank you.
It's a little more complicated than that, but.
Yeah, Commissioner Steinberg.
Thank you. No, but I think it does beg for a very, important discussion as we look prospectively. There are a lot of things that are put in an advertising marketing umbrella that aren't necessarily direct advertising or marketing, whether it be studies, whether it be something else. So I think it would be really important and a good exercise to kind of look at those dollars and say, these are true marketing, advertising dollars, and then delineate, like the Commissioner Orbis was saying, what does that look like? What are those things that we're doing for our outreach? And in some cases, those are policy calls that this board or prior boards to us may have made in the past. And I guess it's an exercise to just look at that again with a new lens and make sure that those dollars are being used, in the best manner possible to make sure that we're having the greatest impact possible. But I would like to know why you are bundling studies along with advertising when they're so distinct.
And I may have misspoke or just conflated some of the terms because there's so many. There's Biscayne Bay this and that. We have the. Let me go to the top. We have the back-based study and work with that. That's separate. Then that's contractual services. That's separate than marketing. The watershed plan. That's a match for state funding, that's operational. We have Biscayne Bay marketing at 100,000, and we have Extreme Heat campaign at 250,000. That 100,000 for Biscayne Bay marketing and the 250,000 for the Extreme Heat campaign are the only marketing specific line items that we have.
Okay, so that's more that's more clarity. I appreciate that. And I think, yes, there are different departments that, in the case of the Extreme Heat, that also are doing it. So I think it is trying to also make sure we're consolidating our resources between fire, emergency management, resiliency / Durham / what are you now?
We're Risk and Resilience.
Okay.
It's part of Durham.
Risk and resilience. So I hear what you're saying, and I think the mayor did actually infer that she was going to be removing that portion of the marketing from at least that budget, from what I understand. So I guess you'll come back with clarity before the next budget hearing.
Madam Chair, may I add something?
Yes.
To the attorneys, I'd like to request an item that freezes all advertising and marketing that's not required by law until we can examine it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next we have libraries. Ray.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioners. Ray Baker, Director of Miami-Dade Public Library. Great to see you all. So just talk a little bit about the library budget for this year. As you alluded to earlier, we do have a special millage, a library district millage, that does not have a backstop. So we live within the library district millage each year. This coming year, the tax roll growth, and really our budget is dependent on the growth in the tax roll, assuming the millage rate remains the same, which this year we are working off of a flat millage rate. So our budget, overall, we have kept pretty flat, other than the growth in the tax roll and the growth in the cost of positions and other expenses, including our staffing. And actually, we're going down 1 in staffing this year. We are eliminating 1 administrative position. So our head count will actually go down going into 25-26. Big focus of our budget, of course, is our staff. 288 of our 817 positions are part-time positions. So 34% of our staffing is part-time. And I think that has really allowed us to keep our budget within what we have available to utilize over the last several years. And a big focus of that, of course, is our hours. We have 50 locations. Our hours are generally 9:30 to 8 p.m., Monday through Thursday, Friday and Saturday, 9:30 to 6. And a big part of staffing those hours is having the part-time and full-time positions to make sure we can open the doors in the morning and provide the direct services that we need throughout the library system. Another big part of our budget is our capital plan. We have 24 major capital improvement projects that are in some stage of either design, permitting, about to start construction, out to bid, that are in play over the next 5 years. And just to talk a little bit about how we construct our budget, like many departments, we work on a 5-year plan at the beginning of the process, taking into account very conservative growth projections on what the tax roll may do, and factoring in any new service that we may have becoming available in the coming years. And as we've looked at our 5-year plan throughout this budget process, we know that the library district is healthy. We are able to continue providing the level of service that we have been providing. We are really not asking for anything additional in this upcoming budget, and maintaining all of the existing services that we have continued to provide to our residents. And a big part of what we have been doing over the last couple of years is making sure that we can provide excellent services both in our library branches and at home. Many of you here may be utilizing our online ebook and e-audiobook platforms. They are being used heavily. We are providing a lot of online programming and events now, including an adult learning academy to help people with English classes and other curriculum, and in-person tutoring. is another thing that is a big part of services we're provided. I also want to point out, going back over the last 10 to 15 years, we have brought in over $39 million in grant funding in both state and federal. That's both for operating and capital projects throughout the system. So a big part of being able to keep the library district in balance has been being aggressive about going after available grant funding and helping keep our expenses low. So Commissioner, I did not prepare a presentation, so.
It's okay, Ray. Just the questions that we sent you, the same questions we sent to all the departments in terms of the growth over the last 5 years, in terms of jobs, vacancies, positions, just generally.
Sure. So, and on the personnel issue, back in 2021, when we were coming out of the pandemic, a lot of you might remember this library system had a patchwork of hours. Some branches were only open 5 days a week. Some branches were opening up at 11 o'clock in the morning, some closing at 6, some at 8. We made a concerted effort at that time to get our service hours consistent throughout all of our 50 branches. And I did want to point out that when we did that, we did not add any additional staff at that time. And over the last 5 fiscal years, we have only grown from a head count of 634 staff going back to 2021 to in 25-26 we will have 662. Where have we added positions? Largely public service. We've also added services such as passport centers, which are revenue generating and pay for themselves. We have 3 passport centers now at 3 different locations. As I mentioned, our capital plan, we have many capital projects that are happening, so we have had to add some construction manager positions as well as some maintenance positions. We have air conditioners, roofs, things that are happening in all of our 50 little houses throughout the county every day. But generally, all of our positions that we've been adding over the last 5 years have been in the public service area and in the branches.
Thank you, Ray. Are there any questions regarding libraries? All right, Ray. Thank you. Thank you very much. And
Just the PSA Library Month is coming up, and people should be encouraged to visit our libraries.
We are in library card sign-up month, so yes, sign up now.
yes.
Online or in person.
Oh, I have a question. Does the library contribute anything to the cooling centers for the heat? Is there any money taken from your budget for that?
No, in-house, our marketing team would help distribute the flyers and any other digital content that's been made available to us. We might do some printing to put a flyer in the library to say this is a cooling center, but no, we are not spending any marketing money on that specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So now we have water and sewer. We're running out of time. We did water and sewer and solid waste as part of the Sunshine meeting. So if you guys want them to present, we can. If not, you are more than welcome to watch the Sunshine meeting. We'll just go quickly. Roy, if you want to talk a little bit about water and sewer. Obviously, water and sewer, we did a Sunshine meeting, talk about the reductions, what was requested in terms of the fee increases in the budget versus where we are now. So obviously, Roy, if you can give us what was requested and where we are now on water and sewer.
Madam Chair, I'm happy to summarize that. I also have a short presentation showing where we've landed if you want to see the presentation.
Yeah. Do you all want to see the presentation? No, I mean, there's a Sunshine meeting. So, yeah, you literally do have a choice. Yeah. All right, we'll just go quickly through it. They can watch a Sunshine meeting if they want to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the important thing to note for the water and sewer proposed rate increases is all rate increases is to support the capital improvement program. There's no increases being proposed for operations. The natural inflation of the cost of doing business has been managed through efficiencies. And so, and also note that no funds come into the Water and Sewer Department from taxes. It's 100% proprietary from the fees charged. Next slide. You'll see in that slide that the department needs a total of $560 million to support the capital program this year. In order to raise the $560 million needed, we needed a 6% across the board rate increase. That entire 6% would have been dedicated totally to the revenue bonds. After a deep dive with Chairman Regalado and the staff, they found some ways to find reoccurring savings in operations, some additional reoccurring savings to reduce that ask to 3.5%. At 3.5%, you were able to see on the right side of that slide the coverages required for our debt coverage for both our primary senior debt and our subordinate debt meet our bond covenants. Next slide, please. What you see at the 3.5% rate increase, you see the impacts to our customers. The first line there is our minimum customers. Often what you hear is our retired couples, our fixed income people that have a minimum water usage. This will impact them by 44 cents a month. What our average single family home customer that uses 5,236 gallons, it will impact them 87 cents a month. Next slide.
And Roy, just to be clear, for my colleagues, when we worked on this, and you'll look at what we reduced, the mandate from the board was not to impact projects. So we are not impacting any infrastructure projects.
What you see here on the slide is a summary of how we reduced that need. It was $20.9 million of reoccurring savings that needed to be found, and you can see how it was found through O&M, bond reserves, and transfers, which allowed us to get to the 3.5 from our original 6%. Next slide shows you the projects that sum up to the $560 million that go into the bond market will fund.
And this is available for you commissioners if you want to look at which ones are in your district.
So that's a quick run through the presentation of how we got to the 3.5% ask. Any further reductions we have determined would come at reducing projects. Some project would have to fall off the list and not be done. I would point out that almost all of the projects here are either mandated through the consent order with the federal consent decree, or they're part of our ocean outfall legislation requirements, all of which are behind schedule. When this administration took office, both the consent order and the ocean outfall was very far behind schedule. We have made up a lot of ground, but we don't have any time to waste, and delaying anything would have severe consequences. So we would propose that we continue with this $560 million. If you want to discuss position growth over the years, Director Fink is here, and he's prepared to discuss position changes over the years if you want that information.
Yes. Okay. Any questions, folks? We got to wrap up. All right, Roy. Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to make one, I know we have to close, one quick action item for fire to talk about with Port. I have the notes here on the annual rent. So the annual rent for the fireboat, it's a monthly rent of $8,640, tax excluded. So the annual rent obligation is $103,680, including tax. And then there's docking fees. I would just ask the port and the administration to consider maybe what we do is just call it a wash. So the contribution to the fireboat would be the rent. So just something to put out there. We'll talk about it at another point. But with that, I literally have to close. I have 1 minute. So can I have a motion to adjourn?
Madam Chair, can I just ask one question?
It depends, because I'm adjourning in like 1 second. It's 1 o'clock. I technically have to adjourn.
So to the chief, can I get, when does the administration plan on announcing the insurance rates for the retirees?
Through the chair, Commissioner, I will get you that date. It should be coming soon.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
administration had advised me that they We're requesting that item 3H be advanced to the next commission meeting.
Happy to do so. All right, folks, with that, we really have run out of time. We have the next meeting coming in.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So instead of it being legislation, can we just make a motion today to?
We cannot. I really have to adjourn the meeting. And I know for a fact that there's other people that have that hold. So I already spoke to the attorneys on it. So
Well, I mean, I can make a motion right now to.
meeting
freeze
adjourned.
Second.